Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us in today's webinar. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we are meeting today. We pay our respects to all elders, past, present, and emerging. My name is Georgie Gould, and I am the Project Coordinator for the Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative. I will be co-moderating today's webinar with my colleague Emma Pearce, which is focusing on digital inclusion. Before we start today's webinar, allow me to go over a few housekeeping points. Our webinar today is live, and we welcome any questions you may have throughout the webinar today. But I will let you know that all microphones have been muted. This is in the interest of the recording. If you have any questions or comments, please add them in the question panel on the dashboard on the right of your screen. At Global Community Resourcing, we have been fortunate to work on a wide range of local, national and international projects with researchers from across the globe to share and create innovative ideas in community care settings. The Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative is convened by Global Community Resourcing. Our webinars are created based on feedback and requests that we receive through the collaborative, and we aim to connect diverse perspectives in research and development, as well as the creation and deployment of assistive technology in community care. Our webinars focus on topics ranging from cybersecurity to innovation in community care, and we are proud to have more than 70 free webinars which have gathered over 10,000 views on our YouTube channel. Just a reminder that if you haven't formally registered at the collaborative site, it is accessible to all and free to register. A range of resources, news articles, and collaboration opportunities are regularly uploaded to the platform, and you can visit satcommunity.com to become a member. Please note that Global Community Resourcing is not promoting or endorsing any particular product, research entity, or organisation. The purpose of our webinars is to serve and to inform viewers of various smart assistive technologies currently in development and or deployment. In today's webinar, our guest speakers, Shelley and Talulah. We welcome our guest speakers, Shelley and Talulah. Shelley will explore the purpose of the AAA project and the process of how QDN have noticed the increased isolation of their members from COVID-19 was first living in the community. Shelley will also outline the work that QDN continues to do in the disaster and emergency preparedness space and how being online is critical to do this. Talulah will talk in detail on each of the phases in the Digital Inclusion Project and discuss the partnership with GIVIT and accessing fit for all purpose donation devices, including phones, tablets, and laptops. Welcome to the collaborative, and I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks so much, Georgie. Hi, Shelley here from QDN. I'm just going to share my screen for you guys. Okay, so we're here today to talk about the AAA Digital Inclusion Project from Queenslanders with Disability Network. So I'll start off by telling you a little bit about who we are and what we do. QDN are a statewide organisation of, by and for people with disability. We have approximately 30-odd peer support groups around the state, from Cairns to Normanton, right down the East Coast and in Brisbane. We're all about nothing about us without us, and we use that network to really influence change in our communities through policy, through practice, and through projects. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our project and why it's been really important to us. So the AAA Digital Inclusion Project started in November of 2021, but it was really when COVID started that we identified the need of people with disabilities in Queensland to be digitally included in their communities. When everyone was in lockdown and everyone was getting online groceries and connecting via Messenger or live chats or FaceTime, a lot of people with disabilities became even further socially isolated because of their lack of technology. And so we partnered with an organisation called Give It, which is a national organisation that receives donated devices and can take them out to participants. So we worked with about 40 of our members who did not have a contemporary device, got them devices so they could continue to connect with their peers, do things like order groceries online, get their medication online, and just feel like they were still part of their community without leaving their homes. One of the things that's been obvious to us as part of this work is that we know Australians with low levels of income, education and employment are significantly less digitally included. And that is particularly of interest for people with disabilities and the work that we're doing. We do this work to try and reduce the digital divide for people with disabilities across Queensland, and we're working in 4 pilot locations, and that's Brisbane, Gold Coast, Townsville and Ipswich. The digital divide for people with disabilities is significant. When we look at access to contemporary devices, the gap between people with disability and people without disability is significant. Also, when we talk about digital ability or literacy to use those devices, again, there is a massive gap between people with and without disability. Affordability is also a massive issue for people with disability, and in 2021, 14% of Australians would need to pay more than 10% of their household income to get quality, reliable connectivity. That's a massive issue for people that exist and work on a disability support pension and where they have limited income opportunities. So you might have gained from that why we have the AAA Digital Inclusion Project. And so the A's are from access, affordability, and ability. One of the things that we've been doing a lot of work on here at QDN is around emergency preparedness or disaster preparedness, and knowing that in times of disaster, people with disability are 4 times more likely to die or be injured than those others in a disaster. So we established the AAA Digital Inclusion Project specifically for more marginalised people with disability to gain access to digital devices, data and skills to help them stay connected in their communities and supports, particularly during these times of emergency, including health and natural disasters like COVID. Research shows that people with disability are up to 4 times more likely to be injured or die, as I mentioned before, in a disaster, and the consequences of people not having a plan and access to warnings severely impacts what happens during an emergency and the response phase. This includes impacts on resources and safety of not only the individual, but also other service systems involved, including community, disability and emergency services. To ensure people with disability have access to supports and services during these emergent situations, it is important that they have digital connection. In recent natural disasters, including the COVID-19 health emergency, the ability to access the digital world has been key to enabling people with disability to have the right timely information, as well as access to essential goods and services to support their health, emotional well-being, and social connectedness. So what does it look like? As the title suggests, we have 3 phases to our project. We get people access to digital devices. We look at ways for people to be able to afford data, and we worked with people so they can learn skills and digital ability to get online and stay connected. One of the important parts of the project is the collaborative nature in which we've rolled out this project. And so we work with a number of partners. We work with Give It and Volunteering Queensland to be able to provide devices and get volunteers involved in the project so that they can help us with each stage of the work. Queenslanders with Disability Network have a vision of co-design for all our projects. And so what we try and do is implement that in every stage of the work. So we have, that we'll sort of talk a little bit more about through this session, is all our content and the project was co-designed by people with disability. We co-deliver the work with people with disability, and we have people with disability on our advisory group. The leadership of people with disability is key to driving and influencing change that delivers equality, rights, and inclusion. QDN is committed to collaboration, co-design, and good engagement because we know it helps generate great ideas and produces benefits for Queenslanders with disability, our communities, and broader systems. Co-design is a real key element to the work that we do, and when it's done well and effectively, it means that people with disability are meaningfully, equally, and authentically collaborating to co-design solutions that deliver quality outcomes and lead influence to inclusive, positive change. In saying that, one of the biggest parts to our work is our digital champions. So in each of the locations that we work in, one of our members or a person with a disability is a digital champion. They help co-design all the content that we write, as well as co-deliver all the workshops that we run in community. So Talulah is going to talk a little bit more about what this looks like shortly, but in general, we've developed 4 key workshops that we work with people with disability on in community. And these were co-designed by people in our leadership group to be able to find out what are the topics that people really want to know about. And so our first workshop is about getting to know your device. The second workshop is about being online and staying informed. Third workshop is accessing essential goods and services. And the fourth workshop, which is one of our most attended, is around understanding data and how it works. So Talulah, I'm going to hand over to you, and you're going to talk a little bit about the AAA components of the work.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shelley. So I guess the 3 phases, we've got access, affordability, and ability. So the first phase, access, is where we've partnered with Give-It, the online portal where not just devices are donated, many things are donated and many items are requested. However, we have our own appeals page as a part of the project. So once we engage in community and understand individuals who are needing access to a device, as that's one of the barriers to getting online for them, we have a conversation and a bit of an assessment around a device that is fit for purpose for them and accessible, which then I put a request up on Give It, and that is then donated, whether that be a second-hand device or donated funds. Awesomely, we've been able to purchase new devices through the project through donated funds. We work closely with Give It. I work alongside Danielle, who's pictured in this picture on this slide. We meet weekly, and that's one of the, I guess, benefits through the project, is that we ensure that no requests are left behind and try and keep up with that, the need for access to fit for purpose devices. Work alongside a lot of community organisations and that kind of engagement to understand where bulk donations lie. We've had a lot of corporate donations where they've upgraded laptops, and we've been able to get bulk donations of those, as seen in this picture as well, which has been quite awesome. As part of the project, we want to ensure sustainability, less e-waste and things like that. So that kind of sustainability aspect of sourcing devices that are still fit for purpose and up to date, but ensuring that it doesn't go into e-waste. So yeah, that's been one part of the project with Give It that has been ongoing. We also have been able to, in all locations, source devices where they go through kind of a middleman. So Substation 33 in Brisbane, where they receive devices, secondhand devices, they go through an IT specialist and ensure that they will be able to use long-term and sustainably. So that's the access side of things. And as I alluded to before, prior to putting those requests up for individuals, ensuring that the device is fit for purpose and accessible. So whether that be that they need a screen protector or an extra mouse or a keyboard and things like that, to ensure that the device is long-term and usable for the individual.
Talulah, did you want to talk a little bit also about the minimum specs of the devices and why we decided on some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So for all different devices, so as Shelley did say before, phones, tablets and laptops, we ensure and had a conversation with Give It around what the purpose of access to devices were, and we want longevity for devices. So the minimum specs that we have ensure that the latest operating system is capable to update, also enough storage for people, and yeah, enough, I guess, power to be able to run the apps or any accessibility features that people may need, so that then, yeah, that it is fit for purpose and all of the features or accessibility side of things, is able to run smoothly and work for the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the reason why, one of the reasons why we were so clear about those specs was so that people could use their phone for things like Zoom and Teams and telehealth appointments, so that they can still participate in everything they need to be safe and well at home when required. Okay, I'll head to affordability, Talulah.
Absolutely. So second phase, affordability, and this phase can be accessed by people with disability who have come for access to devices, or if they've already got a current device. So the fourth workshop, which Shelley spoke about briefly before, is all around data and affordability. This was co-designed by an advisory group of people with disability, and kind of really delves into what is data, how can I use it wisely, what uses up data, and also comparing different service providers to ensure that people with disability who have never been connected before or may be connected currently don't sign up to a data provider or a plan that will then get them into debt or things like that. So that's one aspect, and I guess that workshop is, one of our most highly attended, because it is something that is an ongoing barrier for people. I guess affordability of a device, absolutely a barrier, but I guess that ongoing to ensure the longevity of being connected online has absolutely been of interest. We do a lot of work around researching different spaces and understanding which service providers have certain plans that are affordable. We have also got a partnership with Better Life Mobile. So they are a service provider who are a community-based service provider. We actually found them through Give It, which was a lovely kind of enmeshing of the project. Better Life Mobile offer really cheap, affordable data plans. They also have a very close relationship with the public trustee. Also, people can pay with Centrepay. So I think that partnership was quite vital and in bridging the divide of affordability, because the people that we're working with are particularly vulnerable and marginalised and isolated to get connected online. So that's absolutely a part of affordability where we've been able to kind of close that gap, alongside absolutely being able to provide information and resources that we have for other service providers as well. Alongside the workshop content and that partnership, we also have developed co-designed fact sheets for people. So they're kind of used as a resource for people to look back on post-workshop to ensure that they have something to refer back to and understand. These are in easy English, and used as something for people to refer back to and to understand data and affordability ongoing.
Yeah, and Talulah, a lot of the people that we work with don't necessarily have Wi-Fi at home, so they are relying solely on the data in their mobile plans. So I know I learnt a lot as part of that workshop when we created the content into, if I only have 10 gig for a month, what will that get me? How many Netflix movies, how many emails, how many messenger chats? And it's a really great workshop, especially when it comes to an emergency situation and people are thinking, okay, it's towards the end of the month and I only have X amount of data left. what can I use that for and what do I need to prioritise? One of the other things we do as part of that workshop is just to show people how to monitor their data. And that's been really important as well, to really empower people to understand data and what it means. All right, I'm going to hand over to you, Talulah, to do our favourite part, which is the ability part, right?
Absolutely. So the ability phase 3, which any person who is eligible and interested in the project can receive ability and support, digital support through the project. So what this looks like in a kind of structured way is we partner with neighbourhood centres as our kind of community hubs, I guess, and they're kind of where we co-facilitate the 4 workshops that Shelley spoke about prior. At these workshops, the digital champions who we have identified and who are interested in co-facilitating will attend, and they're mostly people who are quite well known in their community, and so they know the demographic and the space in which we're working in. So these ability workshops are held over the course of 4 weeks. So each of those workshops are hosted 1 per week, and they go for around 2 hours with a break in the middle. At these, this is where Volunteering Queensland also come in. So this is the second partnership. So we find and identify volunteers within the community who are interested in assisting us to bridge the digital divide for people with disability in the community. And they assist the digital champions and also project officers in facilitating the workshop content. And they act as, I guess, kind of assisting in a one-on-one way whilst the workshop content is being delivered to ensure that no one feels left behind. So they run over the course of the 4 weeks. In all of the locations so far, we've been able to continue this support, normally at the same day and same time. And that's where the volunteers will continue to show up, and people with disability in the community who still need that kind of ongoing support are able to attend and receive some one-on-one support. Alternatively, we also offer over the phone one-on-one support, either with the project officers or also digital champions or consultants who that we've developed resources to be able to do that over the phone. And if that is something that the individual feels comfortable with, we also have the capacity for the project officers or digital champions to do some one-on-one support in person, as we know that group learning and group support does not work for everyone. So we're quite flexible around what would work best for the individual and how we can best support them in feeling confident online and feeling prepared digitally for disasters and emergencies.
And I guess that's the unique thing about the project, Talulah, isn't it? That we're able to deliver in a way that suits most people, and whatever that might be. So if it's individually one-on-one, if it's smaller sessions, longer sessions, workshops, we've been able to kind of alter our style to meet the needs of the target population.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that work with neighbourhood centres. So maybe if you wanted to talk a little bit about that, how it works, and then maybe talk a little bit about New Farm, the work we've done there and the existing sort of legacy we've left for the sustainability of the project.
Yes, absolutely. So the neighbourhood centres have been played quite a vital role in the project, I guess, as those kind of community hubs where we would often attend prior to the workshops and get to know the community members and also the neighbourhood centre on quite a personal level, and try to understand what's needed in that space. From there, the workshops occur, and they're normally people who we had previously engaged with who would attend that. Ongoing, the volunteers, we've had some feedback around how it feels like a family, and so they kind of create this relationship within the community centre and the people who have been identified through Volunteering Queensland to continue the passion and that drive for getting people with disability connected online. From there, especially at New Farm Neighbourhood Centre, so ongoing, these digital support drop-in sessions have been quite vital for community members, for their confidence online, I guess, and specifically, and at New Farm Neighbourhood Centre, there's quite a large population of people who attend and receive support through their services that they offer, and digital inclusion has absolutely become one of them. All three phases of the project: access, affordability and ability, and that's been quite lovely to see that kind of continuity of the project there. And yeah, ongoing, we do have drop-in sessions, which has been quite lovely, and the feedback there has been, yeah, quite positive for the project. Yeah,
I guess the volunteer part has kind of been twofold for us, in that not only does it enable people with disabilities to benefit from the knowledge of volunteers with regards to digital devices, but conversely, volunteers don't often have a lot of opportunities to work with people with disability in their volunteering roles, and this just gives sort of that skill development for them as well. So that's been a sort of a part of the project that's been a benefit that we didn't quite foresee, which has been great. I'm going to talk a little bit about our partnership with QUT. So as we rolled through the project, it became obvious to us that QUT was doing a lot of work around digital inclusion, particularly around poverty and disadvantage. And so we began to build a relationship with them, and they had created a digital mentor toolkit to assist people who are doing that digital mentoring role to have an understanding of their role and their skills and how they like to mentor people. So as part of the project, it's been a really great benefit for us to offer to trial that tool. So it was a research project, the tool was developed, and it kind of just sat there a little bit. So the benefit of the project is we've been able to work with all our volunteers and digital champions around implementing areas of the toolkit and the handbook. In addition to this, QUT had developed a self-assessment tool around people understanding their own digital literacy. So we've been able to do some work with them around trialling that tool and how it relates to people with disability specifically, and how it might need to be altered to address that population. So that's been a really great partnership. What QUT have offered to do, so there's been no money changing hands with regards to this part of the project. It's all been in skill development. So we've been able to trial a couple of tools and add to their research. And what they're doing is writing some place-based guides for our neighbourhood centres around how to run good digital inclusion in your community. And so that's been a great benefit to the community centres and the neighbourhood centres that we've been working with. But I guess in terms of the work, we can best describe it as with some case studies. And I know, Talulah, you've been doing a lot of work in Greenslopes House. So if you can talk a little bit about the work we've been doing there, explain to people what the setting in which we're doing the work and the achievements that we've made.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Shelley. So I guess when the project was first forming in the beginning of the year, we were trying to identify particular cohorts of people with disability in the community who may have barriers or be particularly isolated or not connected online. And we do a lot of work, QDN in general, with level 3 supported accommodations. And these we targeted specific residencies who are members of the Supported Accommodation Providers Association, SAPA. Level 3 supported accommodations are a shared accommodation setting where the residents are supported in some ways. However, most people, it's a little bit of interim housing, I guess, and most people rely on the DSP or are particularly marginalised or experiencing barriers in other forms. So Greenslopes House was one of the first supported accommodations that we were able to visit. That was back in February, and we have since been back around 5 or 6 times. We did an initial intake and assessment process with them, so that was at the beginning of the year, and this looked like we connected with the manager and they put up posters and ensured that residents were understood if they were eligible and kind of gained interest within the residency. I went in with 2 of my colleagues and we undertook the intake and assessment process, which I alluded to before, around understanding if they needed a device, what kind of device, what will it be used for, and what type of support would best suit the individual. And it was very well received, that initial visit. I think we got around 20 of the residents, and bear in mind that Greenslopes houses around 75. So the need was definitely there, which was good to know, because we have continued to support many level 3 supported accommodations, almost all of them in Brisbane, in Ipswich, and continuing to in our other 2 locations, Gold Coast and Townsville. With Greenslopes House, we have been back around 4 times to co-facilitate our workshop content, and we kind of understand when we go back and have a chat with the residents, understand what type of support they need, and particularly what type of content would be best or most useful for them to feel confident online, to feel confident in accessing essential services, to feel confident in feeling digitally prepared for disasters and emergencies as well. I think that the disasters and emergency preparedness was quite of interest in these spaces, as during COVID-19 particularly, residencies of level 3 supported accommodations were put into month-long lockdowns, way longer than the general public. So they were hit very hard, and that kind of social isolation and lack of connectedness online was very apparent when we were having conversations with the residents. So it's been quite a success story. I think now that we've got over 35 residents connected with devices and also confident in using them. So that's been a lovely ongoing story in bridging the digital divide for particularly marginalised people with disability. And as I said before, we have continued to support many level 3 supported accommodations over Brisbane, Ipswich, and the other 2 locations.
Thanks, Talulah. The other story I thought we'd talk about is the work that we've been doing with Cerebral Palsy League, or the old Cerebral Palsy League, which is Choice, Passion, Life now. We've been able to get a number of devices for individuals with disability there that have non-traditional communication styles, and you use communication devices, as you can see in the photo for you. So this gentleman, BJ, lives in 24-hour supported accom and uses a communication device. He has a real interest in videos and editing, and so we were able to get him a laptop donated so that he could continue that passion of his, and he can send that off to his family, and it's another way for him to communicate with his family and his loved ones. Another person that we've been able to assist there, we were able to get them a iPad, and so my understanding of this other gentleman that we've worked with is that also non-verbal, but communicates via a bit of sign language and singing, and his family are predominantly overseas in the UK, and so this the iPad has enabled him to talk to his parents whenever he wants, really, and apparently he sings a lot now, so that's a really great outcome, so that he can have that choice and control about when he talks to his family, not when a computer is available for him to use that's a general use within the supported accommodation. I thought I'd take you through a little bit of data. So the project that we're working on is we are trying to place 2,500 items with people and get them donated and to people with disability. We're also trying to do 1,500 instances of support, that capacity building, that ability part of the project. So we collect a lot of data to make sure that not only is the device contemporary and purpose-built, but that we can also inform future work. So in terms of the type of disability, nearly half of the people that we work with identify as having a psychosocial disability or mental illness. A lot of people are living in some sort of shared accommodation or a hostel, caravan park, or community housing. And the intended use of the device is really about accessing the net and contacting family and friends, which is really important part of the work that we're doing in terms of disaster preparedness and social connectedness. Around 10% of the people that we work with identify as being from an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander background, and around 13% of the people that we're working with are also from a culturally and linguistically diverse background. So people that are coming from a double disadvantage. A lot of people exist on the disability support pension, so really minimal income. the eligibility for the project, which is something we didn't really talk about, Talulah, but between 18 and 65, between 18 and 65, so and not eligible for a device under the NDIS. So we try and make sure that we're getting to people in need. Some people do have devices, as you can see, they already have access to a device, but more often than not, those devices are not contemporary. So we've even seen old school Nokia phones, which I probably haven't seen for 20 years. And or they're not purpose fit. Only about half people have access to Wi-Fi at their residence. So we do some confidence questions when we do an assessment for a person when they're presenting to get access to a device. Most people, as you can see, are pretty confident when it comes to making and receiving calls or sending and receiving a text message, although text messages, since the start of the project, that stat has changed significantly in that people need support to understand how to do that. Sending and receiving emails is a real identified need, and we do a lot of one-on-one support around setting up email addresses for people and getting them to practice sending, receiving emails, adding attachments and responding. I guess one of the things that's really important is setting up that email so that you can do those essential service type things, right? So setting it, we all had to try and set up that MyGov account. Remember when we all had to check in for everything and get our digital vaccination certificate and all those bits and pieces? That's the first part of that, is having an email address. And so that's been a significant part of our work. People are okay around using search engines, but we've been doing a lot of work in that space as well. But one of the things that kind of reinforces the reason that we're doing this project is people are not prepared in times of disaster or feel confident about being prepared. And so we do a lot of work in our sessions practically about how you can be more prepared. Is it signing up for your local government's text message alert to say that there's a flood coming or that heavy rain's coming? Is it about downloading the ABC app to make sure that you're up to date with the latest disaster warnings, that kind of stuff? And finally here, this is a bit of information about the capacity building areas that we're doing a lot of work in. And I know Talulah spends a lot of her week doing device and account setup, really getting people from the start, setting up their device, letting them, making sure they understand how to turn their phone on and off, how to put in the SIM card, how to set up their data, all those kinds of bits and pieces so that they're ready to go. It's not just hand over, see you later, good luck. It's really about making sure when they take their device away that they're empowered to use it. And that's a little bit about that confidently using your device as well, those real basics around what do all the buttons do? What do all the apps do? What can I do on data? What can I do without data? What do I need a phone number for? And I guess one of the other things is we have some outcomes that we're trying to achieve, obviously, as part of the project, and measurements of success. Obviously, number of users with improved ability to access appropriate and affordable services, number of service users with improved social connectedness, number of volunteers with improved confidence in working with people with disability. And then we do some measurement of ability, which is really from the index work that I told you about at the start, and that's about attitudes, basic confidence and activities. And I know Ned from our team is very proud of his 7 out of 7 for more confident to use your device from this workshop, from this photo. It's one of his favorites that he likes to show around. If you want to know more about the project, feel free to get in touch with us. I will make sure that we pop our email address out so that you can get in touch and ask questions if you want to know more. But other than that, Georgie, I think I can hand back over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Emma Pierce, who's going to run us through the Q&A session. Thanks, Emma. If you could just come on screen. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgie. I'm just not able to start my camera.
That's okay. We can continue without camera. Thanks, Emma.
No problem. So just want to say thank you to Shelley and Talulah for your presentation today, and I would now like to ask all the attendees to post their questions in the Q&A panel. To begin the Q&A, we have some questions collected from the collaborative. So question number 1, this is a very essential project. Can you explain some of the hurdles or challenges you faced implementing this project and how you overcame these?
How much time have you got, Emma? This is very much, when you talk pilot, this has probably been the most piloty pilot I've ever been involved in. When we first started doing this work, back when COVID first started, as I said in the presentation, we were working with around 40 people and getting 40 people devices. That wasn't all that difficult. Climbing that to 2,500 items and doing that in a more regional setting across the state has been really difficult. The other thing, and so what we've done there is, where possible, try and heighten or improve our communication around expectations of the project. So it's really been about, when people put in their request for a device, talking them through what they want. Talulah will often work if they want something very specific, like an iPad XYZ. You know, it's going to be hard to get that specific device, but we might be able to get you X device sooner, and really working through those needs. One of the biggest difficulties we had as part of the project is we started rolling out in November, with most of our delivery and access work to be in January and February. We had a lockdown at the start of January, and we also had massive floods here in Brisbane that severely impacted our ability to get donations as part of the project. But we were able to leverage off different parts of GiveIt specifically, because a number of the people that we worked with were flood affected. But it's one of those things, when you're looking for donated devices, there are issues in the supply chain. So we have predominantly at the moment relied on donated funds to purchase discounted devices, but we are trying to up the work that we're doing around donated devices. So we've currently worked to do a partnership with Brisbane City Council libraries. So any library here in Brisbane City Council, you can go in and drop off your device and it will be donated to the project. Yeah, they're probably two of the biggest ones that we've had so far.
Oh, thank you. So the next question we have is, collaboration and partnership seem to have been a hallmark of your project. How did you formally manage and assess the impact of these collaborations and partnerships? Were there any problems that you experienced?
We've added a lot of players to our collaborative. So originally it was just the work of QDN and GiveIt. And it was an unfunded project. So we were able to just be a bit nimble and work with what we had. Once we formalised, so the formal partnership is between ourselves, GiveIt and Volunteering Queensland, funded by the Queensland Government through the Department of Communities, Housing and Digital Economy. And then we have informal MOU with QUT. So there's a lot of players and a lot of moving parts. And I think that what we found works best is over communication. So one of the things that we do is monthly reporting, so that we're constantly aware of where we are up to in the project. And that really, and one of the risks identified, obviously, when we first started rolling out, is that we wouldn't meet the numbers. And so that we can constantly keep check of how we're going. And how the partners are going, obviously, as well, because each partner has set deliverables. Talulah has weekly meetings with GiveIt because the access phase is so important and vital to the project, and it is the part that goes up and down the most. So we'll have a lot of intake, we'll have a lot of participants want to donate a device, and we'll have to address that, and then there'll be down times, and then there'll be up times, and we've got to constantly be aware of that and how it's looking. Then I guess the other part is the meeting structure that we've set up. So we have an advisory committee that has a CEO representative and a person with disability representative that meet monthly to oversee the project. Then we have an operational meeting that meets every 2 weeks, and that's the project officers and myself who looks after the project, to really identify those key areas of the project that are doing well, that might not be doing well, and where we need to really look strategically at how we can best deliver the project. So obviously we started with the easier part of the project, I guess, working in Ipswich and Brisbane, because we're Brisbane based and it was easier to get out to people. Moving into the Gold Coast and Townsville and doing that work a little bit remotely comes with its own challenges. So we're having to really apply a lot of strategic time into that of how we can best. Talulah's just spent a week in Townsville with Danielle from Give It, and they really had to work hard on who are the key stakeholders we need to meet with, who are the key partnerships and community that we need to develop relationships with, and I think that, yeah, relationships and communication would be my keys to the project working well.
Thank you. Next question is, minimum specifications are such an important consideration. Have these changed over time or remained stable?
Talulah, you're on that one, babe.
Absolutely. I guess when we started the project, we didn't have any minimum specs, and that was something that we understood through the process of how this project was going to work. We established them to ensure that at the very basis of a device that we would be receiving for someone who does not have any accessibility requirements or does not need any specific specifications in their device, that they ensure that the device is fit for purpose in terms of that operating system and things like that. So they have not stayed the same. I think we didn't have as many at the beginning, and we understood certain models of devices, or kind of just a couple of specifications. And I think as we went along, we understood what type of specifications were coming up for some people, for individuals coming through the project. And so from there, we kind of created a list, but we did create a list with Give It and with ourselves to make sure that, yeah, all of the devices had their own specific requirements. And then also we've had baseline models as well of devices too, that we've kind of come up with to understand, to meet budgeting as well, so to make sure that the funds that are being donated for people who don't have any extra accessibility requirements, that we're ensuring that baseline models are affordable, so that then perhaps we can get 3 people a device instead of 2 people a device. So kind of just looking at, yeah, different models and affordability and supply demands and things like that. So we've got, yeah, those minimum specs and also those minimum baseline models as well, which have shifted and changed as the project has gone along, and we understand need and also understand, yeah, affordability and supply demands and things like that. So absolutely, yeah.
I would say models and expectations have been a massive part of that work, Talulah. So we've got a better understanding now of the models that are available that will meet the need. I'm not going to claim to be the techiest person going around, but usually people want an iPhone, whatever iPhone number that we're up to, and that's where the expectation stuff comes into. It's a donated device. The chances of someone donating a brand new iPhone or iPad really limited. So it's about talking people through their need and how the device or model will meet that need. One thing I will also say is, working with people with disabilities, there are a population within the population that needs specific accessibility add-ons to the devices. Where we can, we do that work with really basic stuff like speech to text, or being able to enlarge things, or like really minimal type things. When it's a specific need around accessibility, we will partner with other organisations such as Vision Australia or Blind Citizens Australia to make sure that the device we're getting for that person is really fit for purpose.
Thank you. And then I think there's just one question in the Q&A panel from Joe. Do you have contact details for a person at QUT?
I do, Joe. If Talulah, maybe if you pop in the chat your email address, we can send through details for people that want specific contacts. Does that sound like a good way, Emma?
Yep, that sounds great. Thank you, Shelley.
No worries.
So thank you for answering the questions and for your presentation today. We'll see what's next for the collaborative. The next webinar will be held on the topic of older people services and what standards do we need, learnings from the Progressive Project with guest speaker Malcolm Fisk. For more information on the webinar being held on the 27th of September and to register, please visit the www.satcommunity.com.au. Thank you. And then we will be posting today's webinar on the Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative. So if you haven't done so already, please go online and register. You will also gain access to hundreds of resources, exclusive events and forums on assistive technology and innovation in community care. If you have any further questions or inquiries, please email us at sat@communityresourcing.com.au. And once again, I'd like to thank the members of the collaborative research team and today's guest speakers, Shelley and Talulah. So thank you, and thank you everyone for attending today's session.